Well, Calum, welcome back to another episode of Red Tinted Glasses, and thanks to all of you that have tuned into the previous episodes. In today's episode, we are looking back at another fine European away victory. Bit of a roller coaster though, Calum.
Yeah, you can say that again. Very much enjoyable though. It's entertaining football, baby.
It is indeed. And later on in the show, we'll be joined by Euan Rankine of the TalkLiviPodcast to look ahead to Sunday's league game at Almondvale. So it was a trip over to Iceland, the land of fire and ice, and it was the Dons that made a hot start, catching the home side very cold from two set pieces in the opening 10 minutes.
Just got to applause. Sometimes you just got to applause, man. Yeah, very, very true. It was a hot start. Couldn't believe it. Came flying out the traps. Super Calvin Ramsay, delighted, and ended up getting the win. But it wasn't as straightforward as we would have liked.
It definitely wasn't. It's not like I spent all morning practicing that in Calum. So, first corner though, of the game, I think it was. And what a training ground set piece. You can definitely tell the Alan Russell effect is in full swing.
And the amount of time you hear people they say they're going to work on set pieces and things that they never do, and you never see the rewards. It's quite a lot. But we're genuinely quite good at them. So thank God for Alan Russell. And most of the amount of times you see that kind of thing, it's cut back, it's played along the ground, and then it's like sclaffed or whatever. But it was
an air
executed
shot.
Perfectly. Exactly, executed perfectly. Very impressed.
Yeah, and I think there also needs to be a special mention to Scott Brown, because the block he got on Ingevarsson, the left back, who was very impressive last night, I have to admit, helped free up Ramirez, and that was an excellent finish from the in-form American.
Was this Ingevarsson? Was he the one that had the bleach blonde hair?
Yes.
We kept calling him Ryan McGivern.
Okay.
But no, executed perfectly. You can't knock it. It's clear to see that they are working on it on the training ground. Sorry. And it's very, very nice to see that, because for how long last season were we going, what are they actually working on there? And we're actually reaping the rewards of these things and making the most of it. And it's paying dividends. There we go. How's that for you?
And how refreshing to see a striker in form and finding the back of the net at will so far this season. It's
unusual. It seems almost alien, but the kid just loves scoring. He can't stop. And he can do it all. Left foot, there's right foot finish. He scored the header the other week as well.
Yeah, big fan of him also using his newfound chant after Sunday's game in his little background to his Instagram video pre-match as well.
Absolute king. He genuinely loves it, doesn't he? He does.
He loves it, and so does the fans. And I did also have to reshare that meme that you created of the 13 reasons why. It all started with that goddamn smile.
I know. We didn't know how dangerous it was going to be, did we? But no. It was like an instant thing. We just sort of fell in love with him, and he's fallen in love with us. And if he leaves, I will be very upset.
And the good start just kept coming. We saw a brilliant bit of link-up play from emmanuel-thomas, putting a brilliant ball over the top that Ramirez hit a first-time shot. Keeper does well to save and push the ball around the post. And it's that man again, Calvin Ramsay, now having, 4 assists this season? Beautiful floated corner that Lewis Ferguson really does well with a header to loop over the defender on the line and into the back of the net.
Kid just absolutely loves it, doesn't he? What a ball that was. It was a great header. Good from Ferguson to get up there. And good to see him not carrying on, but obviously last season he had a hot goal scoring streak, and it's good to see he's doing it again so far this season. But that's now Calvin Ramsay had more assists this season than Josh Joy had all of last season. So
yeah, I knew you were going to try to get that one in.
Yeah, sorry,
Aberdeen
Michael.
Cafu.
Exactly. He's brilliant. And the fact he's only 18, it was just mental to me, to be honest.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see the song that I put out on my Twitter page last night went down very well as well for both Ramsay and Jack McKenzie.
Of course, yeah, exactly. It's basically we're just making cheesy old pop songs into chants now, and it's great.
Yeah, as someone commented on the YouTube page, turning into a bit Eurovision. Maybe have a sing off with opposition fans, but hey, who doesn't love a bit of Eurovision?
So true. Although I didn't actually watch it like this past year. But we're going off sidetrack here already.
Yeah. But no, thanks to those of you that have interacted with the YouTube page. Of course, if you're watching, you can remember to like the video and subscribe wherever you're watching, and also to follow us on Twitter at RTG_podcast and wherever you're listening. Because Callum, it's been a pretty impressive week of listens. Most listens we've actually had to this show, 980 across all platforms. It's pretty impressive.
It seems insane that nearly 1,000 people are willing to listen to us speak nonsense. But thank you nonetheless to everybody tuning in. We do appreciate it a lot. You obviously don't have to. We are two specky idiots speaking about football. But thank you very much for the support. Yeah, and the feedback to the episodes that we receive across YouTube and Twitter as well. It's really constructive to help us develop the episodes as well. And come back to the game at 2-0, cruising, thinking, what banana skin were we thinking about after seeing them win 4-0 on Monday night against Vikingur? But oh boy, what could go wrong? What could go wrong did go wrong. Let them back into it. But it makes for an entertaining game. And Stephen Glass just hates keeping clean sheets. It's just no defence, just vibes. Very clever marketing ploy there, knowing that the potential for a full crowd on Thursday, keep the game entertaining, keep the second leg, Exactly. He knows what he's doing. He's been working with Dave too closely already. He knows what he's up to. But on a serious note, though, I was actually quite impressed with how Breidablik got back into the game. In the conversation I had with Mark Bowl, he commented on the technical ability of the team, and it really showed, albeit we didn't half give them a route back into the game with the failure to deal with the long ball, Ross McCrory not covering himself in glory, but Wilhelmsen, who I think caused us a lot of problems last night, hassled McCrory, showed that desire to keep the ball in play. McCrory gets wrong side, and he cuts the ball back for Eyjolfsson, I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, to really stab home, because Joe Lewis inadvertently, I think as well, comes out to try and deal with the danger. So it really was a tap into an empty net. And they got there. We didn't half help them, obviously, but we've said that we'll be punished against better teams, and clearly this lot are no mugs. We knew that from the last round. But I was very impressed with me, as Mark said, very good technically. Look a good side. It'll set up for a very interesting game back at Pittodrie in front of a good crowd, hopefully. But I think, it was a bit soft. The defence still a little bit of a concern for me, but they score 2, we score 3. They score 6, we'll score 7. And I think that's the philosophy for this season, to be honest. Well, it certainly seems like that. But, to give a team like that that little bit of confidence was really not what we needed at that stage. And we didn't really seem to regain any composure. Well, certainly I felt in the first half. It was once Michael Stewart pointed out emmanuel-thomas's lack of desire to get in and kind of chase balls or have any sort of movement. I just couldn't stop watching it, and it became more apparent and more infuriating as the half progressed. And we kind of felt as the game was going on, it was like we're almost hanging on for half time at 2-1. Yeah, it was a little bit. I think with emmanuel-thomas, if you're asking him to play a high pressing game sort of 2 times a week, you're probably asking quite a lot. But that sort of does highlight the need for us to bring in someone else. But I mean, it maybe wasn't his best game, but it was frustrating. It was very frustrating. And you're right, we did sort of let them back in that first half, and we did lose control, which was frustrating. But thankfully, we came flying out the traps in the second half. Yeah, and I suppose in the first half as well, the Ingvarsson was the man that was kind of targeted with starting their attacks down the left-hand side, especially once Calvin Ramsay got onto a booking as well. It seemed more and more we saw the threat down that side. And it was from that side that they ended up getting the penalty. I think Calvin Ramsay getting drawn out to the ball, maybe a bit of an experience, potentially. I think he obviously slipped as well. But really poor defending from me from Constantine. I really don't know what he's protesting about, because for me, that was a stonewall penalty. Yeah, I think we can't have any arguments about the penalty. Regarding Ramsay, we've seen far more experienced players make far worse mistakes. So I'm not worried at all. He's a young lad. He's obviously going to make those kind of mistakes, and he'll learn from them, and he'll be better for it. And thankfully, it wasn't too costly. But I do agree with Constantine. I think he just sort of left a dangling leg, and as soon as he saw it, he thought, yeah, definite penalty.
Yeah, the issue is as well, he's never going to catch him. As soon as the boys turned him, Constantine's not going to have the pace, but you think, do you not just trust your keeper to maybe save the shot? I just felt it was really lazy from Constantine, maybe hoping not to make contact and con the ref that he's dived. But again, it was good play from Wilhelmsen. Again, we saw him as a constant thorn in the side. But that penalty was this one of only 3 shots on target that Breidablik had all night. So it just showed the kind of marked improvement we had in the second half.
Yeah, definitely. It's obviously very encouraging that we did limit them, despite the fact we gifted them 2 goals essentially. But he did take penalty very well, to be fair to him. But no, you're right. There is reasons to be encouraged there. Maybe not enough for my liking yet, but we're getting there. Work in progress, perhaps.
Yeah, I think though what was apparent in that first half was that change was needed. And maybe change needed going forward in terms of, like you've touched on, their recruitment in the front area to support Ramirez, maybe away from home, because I saw a lot of comments last night about Jet probably doesn't suit that high press away from home. And it's a good point you make about 2 times a week, especially if we're not going to, change our side. And still at centre back, we look really unsure. We've talked about it on here, and it's probably been talked about in the terraces as well, that against higher quality opposition, we're going to be exposed. It's no disrespect to Breidablik, but they were certainly a marked improvement on Dundee United. But they certainly moved the ball very well and had pace, and it did look to unsettle us at times.
Yeah, 100%. I would say improvement on Hacken as well. I think we did probably improve when Declan Gallagher came on. I was quite impressed with him. I wouldn't be surprised to see him keep his place, to be honest. But we've
at the expense for.
I'm not gonna like saying it, but maybe Andy. I just think because of the pace McCrory gives you, essentially on the cover, and he's probably the better ball player as well. You'd probably argue. But I mean, who knows? To be fair, if he did also replace McCrory, I'm sure then things with Constantine would still be fine. But I don't know. I liked though the balls Stephen Glass had at halftime to make the call to make those 3 changes. Refreshing to see a manager not just make one change, because I think many of us would have just probably been satisfied if we just took Jet off and replaced him with Hedges. I was actually really surprised to see McLennan come on. I was very surprised to see Lewis Ferguson come off for Dylan McGeoch. And then obviously Declan Gallagher, like you've touched on there, coming on for Johnny Hayes. And it was a tactical change. We went to 3 at the back and pushed it to wing backs. And we looked at a totally different team, much more composed at the back. Brown and McGeoch dictated the midfield tempo, and we had that pace and threat of Conor McLennan up front that I don't think they really knew how to handle. And they didn't expect, probably, let's be honest, that kind of thing. But it was good to see. We did mention it would be nice to have sort of a plan B. And it looks like we actually do have one, which is unusual for Aberdeen fans. But I think it's a good point to make about Ferguson. The McGeoch things maybe just perhaps felt needed to get a bit more of control of the game. And obviously McGeoch gives you that sort of looking after the ball a bit better. And obviously then McLennan came on and had an impact, and very, very impressive. We'll go into... What was his goal? With the goal, it was impressive. Yeah, the goal itself, though, I suppose, Breidablik did have an opening in the first 90 seconds of the second half. Thankfully, the offside flag went up when he was definitely onside. But for the goal, I was wondering if McLennan was maybe offside, but maybe like Sunday, it was another well-timed run from our forward line. But what a ball to Christian Ramirez. But also what a finish, because it's behind him. Definitely. And what a touch as well from McLennan in the first place to get it under control. Considering sometimes, we've mentioned on the show, the link between the brain and his feet maybe not working quite so well. Which he did show again more in the second half as it went on. It did, but I don't mind that if there is still end product there. At times, these things sort of do happen, and he will get better, I suppose, with time, more experience. But it took it down very, very well. Perfectly weighted ball with his left foot as well. And what a finish from Christian Ramirez. It's so refreshing having someone who can tuck away a chance like that.
Yeah, 4-4 for the American, and I'm really enjoying that Philip Mayer is now very worried about his tweet to Ramirez that if he signs and scores 15 goals, he's going to get a Superman tattoo. So I think he's going to be booking an appointment very soon at this rate.
Quite possibly. I mean, nearly a third of the way there, not barely even into August. Yeah, I'd maybe get booking, Philip. That'll be interesting.
It will be. And as the game, once going 3-2 up, I thought that is where the changes that Glass made at half-time worked. Because it changed. Obviously, we changed defensive shape. We then had two players in Scott Brown, who was magnificent last night. And you could really see the European experience that he's had, and experience in general at that level, coming right to the front last night.
Yeah, 100%. Well, even at bigger stages, which is obviously encouraging considering we're hoping to make to the group stages. We'll see how that goes. But no, once again, yeah, very impressed with Scott Brown. He's barely put a foot wrong, really, for us. And it's good to see the impact he has on those around him. That was basically, there was a question of his legs when he came in, but I don't think there was really a question of the sort of leadership qualities he has and things like that. And it's good to see not only those, but again, that he can still play.
Fine. Yeah, and as I said in that 4-4-2 preview, that Dylan McGeouch is probably going to be an underrated player for us this season. Obviously, at the time, I didn't know that he might not feature as regularly. But if that's the sort of impact he's going to have off the bench, he could turn out to be a key player for us. And you touched on that in that Premiership preview episode, that maybe we will see him if and when we give Scott Brown a break, because we weren't sure about his legs, but will these games coming thick and fast maybe catch up with him?
Possibly, I think possibly. But for example, the game against Wraith, you're probably looking at that as a good chance for sort of McGeouch to come in. It's brilliant having sort of players as good as McGeouch who can just come in, slot in, control games as your sort of role players. It's quite unusual. It sort of shows the depth, well, in that position anyway. And it's good to see. Very, very enjoyable. Yeah,
obviously we're blessed with plenty of central midfielders. Dean Campbell fit enough to get into the squad. Another midfielder, Matt Kennedy, slight back injury, which is why he didn't travel to Iceland. But we've obviously lost Mikko Virtanen. I know you're disappointed with that news, Callum, signing for Hamilton Academical this season on a permanent deal. Disappointing to lose another youth player, but obviously he's seen the opportunity to get regular first team football and taken it with both hands. So got to wish Mikko well for the future.
100%. And now you look at the fact he's sort of 22, it's sort of the case of, again, maybe should have been given a chance a bit earlier. Now he's got to that stage where he has to be playing regular football. Unfortunately, it's not with us, but yeah, I wish you all the best and thanks for the double so-called Emil.
I knew you'd have to get that in. But on top of the changes, we've touched on how impressive McGeouch was in midfield. Declan Gallagher adding a very good level of composure that we severely lacked defensively in the second half, I thought.
Yeah, definitely. That's sort of probably the exact reason he's brought in. Obviously, an experienced chap, played at international level, got good leadership qualities as well. Obviously, he was captain at Motherwell. It's encouraging to see that he could just slot in like that. Obviously, we haven't seen him feature that much, but starting to see what he can do, and maybe from now on we'll see how it goes. He might feature more.
Yeah, and as the game kind of weared on in the second half, the game got a bit niggly. Wilhelmsson very lucky not to be sent off. The kick out at Calvin Ramsay had. I'm not sure who it was, had a very heavy challenge on Funso Ojo, the man who seems to be on the receiving end of most heavy challenges just now. And again, that's where I think, Scott Brown becomes vital. He was up in the referee's face, McGeouch as well. Both of those experienced players using that. However, obviously, defensively, we had a bit of an experience. Jack McKenzie at 21, Calvin Ramsay coming off, looks probably cramp more than anything, hopefully not serious. He was replaced by Jack Gurr. And what impressed me was the way Stephen Glass never seemed to stop shouting. I don't know if you'll have heard that in the Brody over your ridiculous singing that you seem to do through most of the second half. But for those of you watching at home on TV and not in a rowdy pub like Calum, was the way Stephen Glass marshalled Jack Gurr through that second half, constantly shouting at other players. And the one moment that stuck out for me was when Christian Ramirez tried that quick free kick with 12 minutes to go, which nearly came off to Conor McLennan. And, he shouted, "Why the fuck are we taking it quickly?" And it's true, because, just calm it down. I think it was Michael Stewart said that on co-commentary, but he was relentless on that touchline, guiding players, shouting instructions. Again, refreshing to see and hear.
100%, and that's from, obviously he's done his time in coaching, but he's not properly been a manager yet. So it is refreshing to see. It's encouraging to see. It's sort of exactly what you want, especially you mentioned Jack Gurr there. Obviously, he's not, he's a lot older than Calvin Ramsay is, but he's not got much experience at first team level. Obviously, he was with Atlanta United too. But no, it's very, very encouraging to see, and he's sort of starting to see the benefits. But I think you were right in that I couldn't hear that. We were probably maybe too busy singing, and I've got the moves like Jack Gurr. So very possible. But I can't see that one catching on too much.
No, I think the Pussycat Dolls, "Don't you wish your right back was Carl Ramsay? Yeah. Don't you wish your left back was Mackenzie?" See, even you're grooving away. So
it's going to be so insufferable. So like this season, honestly,
100%. But the 3-2 win away from home. Some scenic views that the team have posted on their flight home, flying over the erupting volcano. Neil Simi posting the video on his Twitter account. But Callum, look ahead of next week. The tie's far from over. Obviously, we've touched on Ingevarsson at left back, Wilhelmsen up top, being impressive players for them, technically good, pace about them. Mark said to us last night on the Twitter page that, them being able to press us on the counter is probably going to suit them coming to Pittodrie.
Quite possibly. He also mentioned that they'll expect Mikkelsen, if I'm saying it rightly, to be back in as well, which is a bit of a concern. But no, it should be an entertaining time. Very much looking forward to it in front of what we can hope to be a full Pittodrie. It'll be quite the atmosphere. It's set up very, very nicely. But you're right, they do look dangerous. They are technically very good. They are good in the press. So the tie is by no means over, which makes good for entertainment purposes, but not good for the nerves.
No, it's definitely going to be a nerve shredding. But it seems that the Breidablik manager has been drinking whatever Tam Courts was drinking, because after the game he came out and said that he didn't expect them, as in Aberdeen, to be so bad. I expected them to come and play football, but they never did.
Why would you say that when if we were so bad, what does that make your lot? And you've just said that's the team talk sorted for next week, really, isn't it? Yeah. Why would you quite say that? That seems so stupid and also just incorrect. But, whatever.
But I obviously think in terms of, I expected them to play football. Was it maybe referring to the kind of passing play that we've done so far this season? But as Mark said in that preview, he was really knowledgeable, really insightful, and he said, long balls over the top will cause problems. So we've done our homework. Alan Russell did his homework on set pieces. Stephen Glass did his homework, got it tactically spot on. Okay, it was nervy. Okay, it was hard fought in the end probably, but hard work and dedication to your research and insight into the opposition has paid off, and we take that lead to Pittodrie next week.
Exactly, 100%. And we said it after Stephen Glass's comments on the Dundee United game, or was it one of the Hacking games? It was the Hacking game, sorry, the first leg. He said, we looked at how they play, we looked at how we could beat them, and it seems to be changing game to week, week to week, whatever. And it's encouraging, it's paid off again. So we're reaping the rewards of that work, and all I've left to say is just hadat to the boy who said we were bad.
Yeah, so winning breeds confidence. Next up is a trip to Livingston on Sunday, and we're delighted to be joined by Euan from the Talk Livy podcast. Euan, thanks very much for joining us on the show today. Obviously, you were speaking to David Martindale yesterday, so a bit of a downgrade speaking to the Red Tinted Glasses voice today. Hope you're well.
Yeah, I'm all good. Happy to be on as well. Obviously, just previewing the season ahead with the gaffer. We've done that last couple of years with Gary Hope. Obviously, Davey's in the hot seat now, so he can't shy away from us like he did before. But it was a good catch up with the gaffer. Obviously, I haven't spoke to him in a wee while with all COVID restrictions and stuff, so it was good to catch up with him.
Yeah, and for those of you that are hopefully tuning in that are Livingston fans, make sure you follow Euan. His Twitter handle is above. It's at Euan Rankine. And make sure you can follow the Talk Livy podcast at Talk Livy. They're also on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe to them. There's a couple short of 100, so it'd be good to get them to hit the century mark as well. Euan, obviously, second game of the season, Aberdeen coming to town. It's quite a chastening first day of the season. Probably the fixture everyone wanted to avoid. Trip to Rangers. How did that one go for you, other than the result?
Yeah, I mean, actually speaking to Davey about that yesterday, he thinks that the computer robot that does the fixtures has got it in for us, because we've had Celtic and Rangers in the last 4 seasons on the opening day on Flag Day, and we've had 3 of the 4 games away from home as well. So it wasn't that big a surprise when we got Rangers on the opening day. But as you say, it's the game nobody wants to kick off their season, but it's a free hit, isn't it? Essentially, you know, they've that's the 20 wins on the bounce they've had at Ibrox in the league. So, you know, we're going there with nothing really to lose. And I think first goal we lost was really poor set piece, which has been a bit of our Achilles heel, despite all the kind of press talking about how good we are from set plays. I think we actually had one of the worst records from conceding goals from set plays last season. So I know it's something Davies wanted to address over the summer, but really poor defending for the first. You know, you go 1-0 down after 7-8 minutes at Ibrox, you think the worst is incoming. But I think without creating an awful lot or threatening, we kind of had 2 or 3 half chances in the game, but without creating an awful lot, I think we actually kept Rangers at bay quite well. I don't think they carved us open. Max, yeah, he's made a couple of saves, but they're really comfortable saves, which you'd expect your keeper to make. And, you know, Scott Wright, ex-Aberdeen boy, scores fantastic goal. To be fair to him, defending's questionable on our part, but it's well taken. And then we go down to 10 men for the last 15 minutes, and with Jay's Kabaya having to come off injured. So, you know, you're up against it again. 3-0, you know, yeah, Rangers deserve to win the game, but as I say, it's teams will come out on the end of worse scorelines than we did at the weekend there.
Yeah, and I suppose when, you know, you're saying conceding a set piece goal, we've scored 2 last night against Breidablik. Alan Russell maybe having a look at that to see where we can exploit that going into the weekend. But was it a tough going? So I saw some Rangers reaction to the result that, like you said, they didn't really impose themselves on the game. But, you know, is it true it was only 1 shot on target you guys had? So a tough shift for Bruce Anderson.
I think that's complimentary saying we had a shot on target. I think we had probably only 1 real effort on goal. As I say, it was a couple of half chances, but Bruce was it's the graveyard shift for a lone striker, really. Albeit we were on paper playing a 4-3-3, but, you know, Bruce was up there on his own, let's be honest. And it was a long shift for him, but I'm sure he'll have games throughout the season where he'll be able to kind of show his ability a bit more than a game like that. But it's, as you say, a game you don't want the opening day, and if you're the number 9 playing that day, it's the game you don't want either, is it? So.
No,
I definitely agree, and I think at times we did see Bruce sort of struggle up there whenever he was up there by himself as well. So yeah, he was on a hide into nothing, I think, that day, really. But obviously, Bruce Anderson left Aberdeen to go for Livingston. How do you feel about that sort of signing? Quite excited. Did you see much at Hamilton last season?
Yeah, I saw glimpses of him at Hamilton. Certainly the one each game against Rangers, he caused Rangers a hell of a lot of problems that day. I know we've been in for Anderson for probably the last couple of seasons. I think he was due to come to us last year, but it was loan fees kind of involved with it that he didn't end up coming down the road. So he's a guy Davy's been after for a while, and it's coincided. I think it's worked with Jet going the other way. I think it's probably waived compensation, getting paid as well, which has probably played into our hands in terms of fees involved. But I think from the glimpses I've seen of him so far, that obviously I've been back at all the games other than at Ibrox, but he strikes me as the type of striker that likes to play off the shoulder, balls in behind, space in behind. But I think he reminds me of Scott Robinson a little bit in terms of his movement and things like that. And I think he just has a bit more of a natural nose for goal. You know, the couple of goals he's scored, he's got in the 6-yard box and he's on the end of a kind of cross ball. So he might be that kind of bit more of a killer instinct that we've probably not had since being in the top flight. Even though Lyndon Dykes did really well for us, I would never say Lyndon's an out-and-out goal scorer. I'm sure he'd probably say the same as well. I think the last kind of proper striker I would say is Hardy, and Hardy spent half the season injured as well. So I think Anderson will prove to be a decent bit of business for us.
I think so. I think he'll only benefit from more regular game time as well. Obviously, he's at that point of career where he needs it. But you mentioned about his finishing as well, to be fair. But we saw even the goals he took for Aberdeen, he took very, very well. Yeah. That man, Jet, that you mentioned, obviously kind of went the other way. How did you feel about that? And are you sort of surprised with sort of how he started? We've been quite impressed, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, Jet, I mean, when he signed for us, with obviously Dykes had just left, and then we brought in Anthony Stokes as the saviour, and that lasted all of about 3 weeks. So Jet was our third number 9 of the season, and I think after having Dykes, you guys obviously watch Scotland as well, and Lyndon's an absolute workhorse up top, and the shift he puts in for the team's incredible. So we were so used to that with Lyndon, when Jet's a very different player, and Jet had been 18 months without kicking a ball as well. He was well behind. We had no reserve games to get him up to match sharpness, so he was having to play first team games to get up to speed. And I think, I'll be honest, I was very critical of Jet when he first signed for us. I didn't think he was the answer at all. But last 3 months of the season, he was by far our best player. He had 2 or 3 really good performances against Aberdeen. The last 2 games up at Pittodrie, the 2-0 game I was in the cup game, he was excellent in both games. He obviously scored a cracker in the last game at Livy as well. And technical ability wise, he's well above us. The reason he was with us is because he'd been without a club for 18 months, and Davies said much the same as well. Technical ability wise, he's one of the best he's worked with. So I think his best game source probably came off the right hand side. I think, as I say, the cup game, the 2-each game, he was kind of played there, but he can also play as a number 9 as well. As I say, ability wise, absolutely no doubt, he probably is a bit of a luxury player. You're not going to see him running channels, and everything like that.
Evident last night.
Yeah, it's not his game. It's just the type of player he is, and he's 30, 31 years old. He's probably not going to change now. It's the type of player he is, but ability wise, he is top draw, and I genuinely think he could be one of the signings of the season if he's given games with Aberdeen. I genuinely think had we had him match fit when he first arrived, I think we could have finished higher than we did. I think that's how big a difference he was making at the tail end of the season for us and keeping us in games.
Yeah, well, I think you said the way he kind of came onto a game at the back end of last season, obviously probably his trial was the games against us, and he passed them with flying colours, but obviously picked up, was it your goal of the season award as well for, was it an overhead kick?
He was basically having his own goal of the season competition at the tail end. He had his first goal up at Aberdeen was really well taken. He had the goal against Hamilton, which was the Henry-esque one where he flicked it up on the volley. That's the one that won it. And then he had his volley against Aberdeen as well. So I think Jet had 3 of the 6 contenders in the end. But as I say, it just shows the quality that the guy's got. As I say, he's got bags of ability. He's not played at the level that he has. You don't come through Arsenal's youth set up and play first team games at Arsenal if you're not very good. No. So he's clearly got ability about him.
Yeah, another player I noticed that's been in good form during your Premier Cup campaign was Craig Sibbald. He could be a big player for you this season.
Yeah, Sibbs is a funny one because about 2 seasons ago, I think we all kind of had Sibbs leaving at the end of his contract a couple of years ago. We had Robbie Crawford, who's now at Motherwell, and Robbie had properly cemented himself in the team, and then Robbie, I think he broke his wrist and a couple of ribs again against Hearts, and Sibbs came back in. Now, typically Sibbs, when he was at Falkirk, played as number 10, but he's came in with us and he's sat a bit deeper, almost as a holding midfield player with Bartley, and probably about November time that season, and he's never looked back. He's been a mainstay in the team, and out with Nicky Devlin last year, I would say he's by far our most consistent player throughout the season. And Sibbs, he'll play a lot of football this season for us again. I know he'd been struggling recently because he was out with COVID and he's asthmatic as well, so he's struggled a bit in terms of his recovery from that. But it just shows the kind of player that he is, that he was still able to play in like 28-degree heat, having just come back from isolation and stuff like that. Just kind of shows what the boy's about. But really good footballer, like underrated a bit, Sibs, and he'll be a big player for us this season for sure.
Yeah, as a player I always liked during his time at Falkirk when he was coming through there. Looking ahead to Sunday's game though, Euan, do you think this is a good game for you to bounce back from the opening day defeat at Ibrox? But if it goes, 2 defeats in a row, if it's like another heavy defeat, are Livy fans kind of fearful for this season?
I say this every season and it sounds really downbeat and negative thinking, but 10th place and above for us is success in this league. There was some Livy fans celebrating Hamilton going down, which I thought was bizarre because they were probably our safety net. In terms of if it got to January time and we're struggling, they're probably the only club we could outspend in terms of bringing players in. And whilst we're well up, I think since we've got promoted, this is the toughest Premiership we'll be involved in by some distance in terms of clubs that are in the league as well this year. But we've got a stinking run of fixtures to start the season. I think we've got 4 of the top 6 in our first 6 games. Rangers, Aberdeen, Hibs and then Celtic. So we've got an absolute stinking start. No wonder Davey thinks the computer robot's against it. But so it's a good game to come back against. I think the games with ourselves in Aberdeen since we've been promoted have all been really close. I don't think, other than the 2-0 game maybe a couple of seasons ago, 2-0 last year, there's only been a goal in it in every game between ourselves and Aberdeen. So I think it will be a fairly close game, but I think it will give our fans maybe a better perspective of where we're sitting for the season ahead, because you can't really judge us off a game at Ibrox on the opening day. And the league, the group games, we had serious issues with COVID as well. Probably, I think we had 6 positives and we only had 6 positives the whole of last season. So it just shows you the issues we've had since coming back. But yeah, I think it will give us a better gauge of where we're at going into the new season. Obviously, first home week game as well. So players will be looking to kind of put a stamp down with the biggest crowd we've had in a wee while as well. So yeah, it'll be good. I'm looking forward to seeing how kind of we fare against Aberdeen, because I think Aberdeen will be pushing certainly for 3rd this year. But depending on what Postecoglou does down at Celtic Park, you never know, you could push a little further. So we'll wait and see.
Thanks for mentioning the crowd there, actually. That brings me on to the next question absolutely perfectly. I've managed to buy a ticket for Sunday, and obviously you've been back as well. How excited are you to see sort of obviously both a big crowd, home fans and away fans back in, and sort of what difference do you think it would make to the game? I managed to get into one game last season behind closed doors, and it was the 0-0 game with Rangers, and it was the most bizarre experience I've ever had watching a game. It felt like even less than a reserve game that we get for some of the reserve games at Toni Macaroni, and it's just weird because there should have been 8,000-9,000 in the ground that day, and there's 200 folk, and you can hear Steven Gerrard moaning that the balls weren't cleaned for the start of the second half, and Gary Holt turning around telling him he's not a ball boy, he doesn't care. You're hearing these little back and forth, which was a wee bit interesting. But it'll be great to have some fans back in. Our fans are moaning already about what seat they've been allocated because of distancing and everything like that. But it's par for the course for some of our fans. But
how many home fans is it that are getting in?
Well, I think we applied to get 3,500 for the game in general. I think we've allocated Aberdeen 9,000. 900, sorry, 9,000. Jesus, no much distance in the stadium. 9,000. But I mean, Davey was talking about it again yesterday. We've probably only sold about 750 season tickets, so there'll be a few walk-ups, I'm sure, as well. But because they've gone on general sale, but there should be at least a couple of thousand in the ground, which will be really good to see.
100%.
Definitely, it's good to see fans slowly and surely getting back into the games. Anyway, how do you see Livingston approaching the game, though, Euan? Do you think it'll be a cautious approach, or do you think they'll try and get at Aberdeen from the off? Obviously it's an away game we've had on Thursday there, travelling back from Iceland. Do you think they'll try and exploit potential tired legs in the opening 10-15 minutes?
Well, we kind of talked on our preview obviously you've got two young fullbacks that have just come in, Mackenzie and Ramsay, who looked very good on the opening day, but at the same time they'll be very inexperienced. We brought in Christian Montano. I'd like to see us put him up against Ramsay. Very experienced winger down south, played a few hundred games in the EFL, so very experienced player. And I'd also like to hope that we've got Nicky Devlin back as well, who was outstanding for us last year. I know I'm biased because we sponsor him on the podcast, but he was genuinely great. He won all of our Player of the Year awards to back it up. So he'll cause a massive threat down the right-hand side if he's back in as well. But we've been setting up as like a 4-3-3. I think Davies made a conscious point after we had that unbeaten run last year. I think teams started to change the way they played against us, and I think Davies' kind of approach for this season is we need more ways to win games of football. And I think he's openly tried to bring in players who are maybe a wee bit more creative on the ball. The likes of Andrew Shinnie's came in, who's got, again, bags of experience down south.
It was a good signing for you guys, that signing.
Yeah. Davey referred to him as a marquee signing, which was a giggle in the presser because he was like, "You've never been a marquee signing anywhere." It's Andy, but yeah. So Shinnie coming in, he struggled. I think he picked up a knock a couple of weeks back against King Beast, so we'll wait and see if he's available. But I think it'll be. I honestly don't know how we're going to go this season. I think even Davey was kind of saying that you don't know how the season's going to work out at the end. You can prepare all you want, but it's genuinely, we're going through a bit of a transition. I think there's a few clubs that almost have this new era vibe this year, yourselves included in that, with Stephen Glass coming in, but I think we have it as well. We've had 17 players move on, we've had 11, 12 come in, so it's a really new looking squad, youthful looking squad as well, brought the average age down significantly, so we're a bit of a lottery this season, I think. But hopefully we can pick up some positive results and hopefully we go a bit on the front foot against Aberdeen, because as you say, you guys have had the midweek game, the Thursday night game, so can try and take advantage of that hopefully.
And Calum, it's interesting there that maybe the opportunity Livingston could exploit Calvin Ramsay's, but it's back to a plastic pitch. This
beautiful plastic pitch, mate.
Yeah, I just had to get that in there because we know it's a hot topic of debate, plastic pitches in the top flight. But we saw Calvin Ramsay coming off with cramp just after the hour mark. So maybe that will be an area that they can look to exploit. But do you see any other changes to our lineup? Obviously, there were some question marks amongst our support about Jet's performance last night.
I hope Jets keeps his place, because I think it's really interesting to see what he does after he ripped us apart. I'll see if he do the reverse. But I think it wouldn't surprise me if Jack Gurr came in for Calvin Ramsay, even if it's sort of just as a precaution ahead of Thursday's big game. Obviously, Jack Gurr's looked okay in replacement, and Declan Gallagher probably another one. I wouldn't be shocked to see him come in from the start. Obviously, played well in the second half last night, and we know what he's all about. So it wouldn't surprise me for him to come in. But other than that, I can't see there being wholesale changes. It doesn't seem like that's Glass's thing. He sort of seems to enjoy his consistency.
That's why change a winning team, I suppose.
Yeah, very true, exactly. And as you said earlier, winning breeds confidence, and that seems to be the way it's going just now. So I can't imagine there'll be wholesale changes.
No, and hopefully Christian Ramirez can continue his hot goal scoring streak as well. Euan, are Livingston doing a pay-per-view offering this weekend?
I actually don't think we are. We certainly haven't for the opening games of the season, the group games. So I genuinely don't know what the script is with that. But I know it was a hot topic with Aberdeen fans in particular. It was. You want to know what made it even worse was the fact that the same game got postponed twice. And so our Twitter went into meltdown 3 times for the same game. Yeah. But I genuinely don't know if we've got anything planned for that. So
it's disappointing. I was looking forward to moaning and paying 20 quid for a game I'm not attending again. As I say, there was rationale behind it, trying to kind of avoid season ticket holders being shafted by making the price less than what their average gate price would be with their season ticket. And obviously they've made the big financial commitment, haven't they? So I think it was trying to balance that out, and we can't really afford to lose season ticket holders. We don't have an awful lot of them. No. So
I think you try your best not to shaft the very few that you've got.
No, I agree, and obviously when you explained it in the group chat, it definitely made sense. But I did enjoy how much you enjoyed our moaning at not only the prices but the fact there was a plastic pitch as well. Because there's always something to moan when it comes to Aberdeen fans.
Oh, you're a specialist at it. Yeah, genuinely specialist at it.
Oh, we are indeed. But no, I do think it'll be a close game on Sunday. But I'm just hoping that we can continue this form that we seem to be in and carry that momentum forward. But Euan, we appreciate you taking the time to join us on Red Tinted Glasses. And just a reminder to the viewers where they can find the Talk Livy podcast.
Yeah, so Talk Livy, it's at Talk Livy on Twitter. We're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, also on YouTube as well, and kind of all the usual podcast streaming sites. So we tend to release weekly episodes. We have interviews with the players and staff, former players and things like that as well. So yeah, check us out if you're ever bored and want to listen to me ramble on about Livingston.
No, that's great, Euan. Thank you very much for your time.
Perfect. Cheers, guys.
Well, that was Euan Rankine there from the Talk Livy podcast. Great to have an opposition insight ahead of the weekend, Calum. I'm sure you'll agree. Also, just a quick thanks to those of you that have been tuning in, either if it's via YouTube or listening to the episode, and also to Skylights for letting us use their song YRA for the intro and outro music.
100%. And also to those tuning in, if it's on YouTube, don't forget to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, comment down below if you thought we were talking absolute rubbish, and subscribe with notifications on if you haven't already. Don't want to miss out in future, or follow us wherever you're listening, as well as on Twitter at RTG_podcast. And our Twitters are above us on the YouTube video as well, so don't forget to follow us there too. Thank you very, very much for tuning in. Here's hoping we'll be back with another positive podcast.